Lest my reactions seem excessive, I feel the need to explain the reason for it. There are certain deeply rooted fears in us that we can never free ourselves of. There are those who shudder at just the thought of a spider, who faint at the sight of a mouse or a snake. Well, I confess, to this day I have a physiological horror of foxes, a horror that I have never been able to overcome, despite being convinced of having identified its cause. I am positive that this phobia springs from an episode that occurred in my early childhood. At the time I had been given a dog, a young setter with whom I often spent entire days. His only fault was to give in to his hunting instinct, disappearing from home and returning several days later. The last time, however, his absence went on for too long. After a week of hoping, my father took me aside to tell me that it was pointless to keep waiting for the dog, and that I had to make my peace with it, because the setter would certainly not come back. I cried and despaired at the thought that I would never see him again, and maybe it would have been better that way, because after a few weeks away, the dog returned, or rather, what remained of him returned. One day, as I was looking dejectedly out the window, I saw him sitting in the tall grass. He seemed to be waiting for me. I rushed outside and ran toward him. I immediately thought it was strange, however, that he did not react in any way to my call. He remained stock still in the grass. He didn't move, not even when I was but a few meters from him. Right away I saw that he was in a pitiful state, sores all over his body, reduced to skin and bone. But when I held out my hand to have him recognize me, the dog rushed at me, trying to bite, and it was only due to his extreme weakness that he did not succeed in his intent. Leaping back, I was able to dodge his attack, but his reaction had scared me to death, and I burst into tears. At that moment, something happened that I would never forget. The poor animal, torn between two opposing natures at war in him, prostrated himself at my feet and began to whimper piteously, as if begging my forgiveness for his having tried to hurt me, as if wanting to alert me because the evil nature in him was about to gain the upper hand. I don't remember anything else except that my father ran over in time to carry me to safety. It was he who told me that it had been the bite of a fox that had reduced the dog to that state. And since that time, that elegant little creature the fox has been transformed in my mind into a terrible disease spreader, a carrier of rabies, the very emblem of evil. He has populated my worst nightmares and has become my most deep-seated phobia, to the degree of even causing my faith to waver. That's right, because that episode contained within it the mystery of human nature.